Hello and welcome to my very first devlog for Super Chillers, an adventure game series created primarily by a single person, me. My name is Allison and I'm the sole game designer at Rose Arcana Games. As with many of us, I dreamed of making my own game since I was a kid. I attempted to create text adventures in BASIC on my Apple IIe computer when I was in 4th grade. I think it was a dating sim. I really wish that I could find a copy of that now and see how terrible it was. And like a lot of us, my love of video games turned into a desire to make video games. I ended up going to school for digital media and getting a design job in advertising, a career I've had for over 15 years now. But that's not making games, is it? But then, after many years of silently working in my spare time, I finally achieved my dream. Last year I released my very first game called The Radiance. It's a visual novel slash life sim slash princess maker type game about a magical academy, and it focuses on a heavy narrative and lots of romance. I had a blast making this game, but it took me so long to finish, and I ended up having to cut a lot of features I wanted to include due to intense scope creep, which I think is a downfall of every indie game developer at some point in their careers. In the end, my game was far from perfect, but I'm still incredibly proud of it. The Radiance ended up being nearly 300,000 words long. That's like a lot of words. And all those words and all those branching narratives are the main reason it took me almost 5 years to complete. Writing a novel is hard, y'all. So I made a decision. One that might turn out to be a terrible one, but I've never let that stop me before. After I had already established myself in the visual novel community, I decided to switch genres completely for my second project. A genre that still focuses on narrative, but in a much different way. I decided I wanted to make a point-and-click adventure game. You know, in that classic Sierra LucasArts style. It's a totally different type of game with a totally different audience. Super idea, right? Thankfully, the adventure game niche is still alive, and so I thought, you know, there's nothing that childhood Allison would want more than to create one of these games, so why the hell not? In order to complete this fantastical childhood dream game idea that I had, I wanted to include another ingredient from my youth. And that ingredient is young adult pulp horror. I'm talking R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike, point horror. These books were all the rage when I was young and I ate them up. They're cheesy, they're dramatic, they barely hold up, but I still love them. So what would be cooler than to create a series inspired by these amazing books, but in video game form? The idea is to create a loving tribute to this over-the-top genre of books that is campy and self-aware. And yes, I did say I wanted to make a series of games. Just like the books, there'll be bite-sized stories that are fun but easily digested. Stories that you can finish in one evening if that's how you roll. There will be adventure game puzzles, of course, and achieving the proper level of difficulty for puzzles will be my main focus. Not too hard, not too easy. You probably won't need a walkthrough, but you may get stumped from time to time. That's the plan anyway. I decided to call this series Super Chillers, and if you're a fan of these types of books, you know exactly why. My first challenge was to decide on an art style. I went back and forth for a while, but settled on the classic pixel art style. For one, I'm a huge fan of pixel art in general, but since the series will be taking place in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's based on books that came out in the late 80s and early 90s, I felt that it was an appropriate choice. Besides, we're going all out nostalgia here. What's more nostalgic than pixel art? For my last game, I hired talented artists for the majority of the art. I'm a graphic and web designer. I'm not an illustrator. But for this game, I ended up making the maybe horrible decision to do the background art myself. Why? Well, number one, I wanted lots of locations, and that would burn through my meager budget before I even got started. Second, I wasn't sure how to describe my visions for these scenes. It's very important to me to capture the unique vibe of the pulp horror genre. I wanted to include lots of subtle references to the books, as well as references to the decade in general. and I just didn't think that my vision could be executed by someone who didn't get it, you know? Someone who didn't read the books like I have. So I decided I was gonna have to do this myself. The trouble is, I have no pixel art experience. I am a graphic designer. I have a lot of experience in Photoshop, so I thought, well, maybe it's time to just dive in and learn. Level up, gain new skills. So I thought I'd just throw myself in headfirst into the fire and pray that I don't end up with hot garbage. Here I'm showing you some of the scenes I've created so far. All of them are still a work in progress. All of them subject to change as I continue to improve in this pixel art medium. However, I am hiring actual pixel artists for the character art and character animation. I made an attempt to do a walk animation on my own, and well, yeah. Listen, sometimes you gotta admit you need help. So we're gonna let someone else handle this, for the sake of my sanity and your eyeballs. So the first entry into the Super Chillers series is called The Chat Room, and it's a story about a teen girl who logs into a mysterious chat room that predicts the deaths of her classmates. I don't want to say more because the surprise is half the fun, but expect some amazing Fear Street-like tropes. You know, the fake outs, villains with ridiculous motives, all the good stuff that made those young adult horror books so delightful. So the plan for now is to create a really good prologue, a short intro to the story in the form of a 30-minute-ish playable demo. I'm hoping this intro will get the idea out there, show them what I want to do, and get people excited. So it's gotta be a really good prologue. And that's about it for this very first devlog. If Super Chillers sounds like something you'd be into, give me a sub so you can see future updates, you know, if you want to. Until next time, I'm gonna be drowning in pixels. I will see you guys later.